Yashika, start.
Good evening, one and all. I, Yashika, welcome you to the BRICS CCI WE webinar on Women in Tech, Driving Growth, Shaping the Future. The BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry is a non-for-profit organization recognized by the United Nations that promotes commerce and industry in the BRICS and other friendly nations. It is a registered body under Societies Registration Act 1860, Government of India, and empaneled with Niti Aayog. The women's vertical of BRICS CCI WE, has been created with a prime focus on women empowerment initiatives and policies across geographies. The objective of Women's Wing is to create an enabling support system for women entrepreneurs and professionals across geographies. Today's webinars is particularly significant as we gather to celebrate International Girls in ICT, a global initiative aimed at inspiring and empowering girls and women to pursue careers in technology. Throughout the session, we will explore the pivotal role of women in driving innovation, growth, and transformation in the tech industry. I would now like to request Ms. Ruby Sinha, the President of BRICS CCI WE Vertical and member of governing body BRICS CCI, to deliver the welcome note. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Yashika. Good evening to everybody from India. On behalf of BRICS CCI WE, the Women Empowerment Vertical of the BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all our esteemed panelists and audience from across the globe, as well as the BRICS CCI team who's been attending our webinar on Women in Tech, Driving Growth, Shaping the Future. This webinar is being held to commemorate the International Girls in ICT Day, which will be held on 25th of April. We would like to extend a special welcome to our Director General, Dr. BBL Madhukar, for taking out time to support this webinar of the Women's Vertical. I would also like to welcome the rest of the BRICS CCI team who's here today, and a special welcome to the BRICS CCI Secretariat team of Ankita, Yashika, Naman, Durgesh, Ashmit, in case I'm missing anybody. Thank you for joining and trying to make this a success. Being observed every fourth Thursday of April each year, this global initiative encourages girls to pursue careers in technology, aiming to bridge the gender gap in this field. The International Telecommunications Union, which is the United Nations Special Agency for Information and Communication Technologies, estimates a skills shortfall of over 2 million jobs in the information and communication technology sector within the next 5 years, especially where women can play a critical role. Besides skilled women workforce, there also exists a critical gender gap at the leadership level in STEM fields. To thrive in STEM, young women must be exposed to role models in leadership positions. According to reports, only around 5% of leadership positions in tech are held by women. Approximately 5% tech startups are owned by women, and only 11% of executive positions are occupied by women in Fortune 500 companies. Having more female role models in technology will inspire more young women to enter and have successful careers in the industry. Today, we have with us here today a few such inspirational role models from across the globe who will surely inspire more and more women with their insightful viewpoints and inspirational thoughts. Looking forward to an engaging discussion. Thank you.
Thank you for your words, ma'am. Now, I would like to invite our Director General, Dr. BBL Madhukar, to deliver his special address. Over to you, sir. Sir, your mic is on mute.
Sir, you're on mute.
Is it okay now?
Yes, sir.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure and honor for me that I'm attending this kind of webinar on this very critical subject. You know, women has been for a long time in the forefront of the very origin of the industry in the world. So from that point of view, I would say that, well, Indian women are already participating in many ways in various areas of technology. But unfortunately, the leadership positions have not been occupied by them yet because of several difficulties and problems which they confront in life. Because the responsibility of of running or a household and taking the responsibility for a family is a big challenge for every woman, for that matter. But then technology has an answer for many such difficulties, especially when you see that there are certain technology areas which do not require much of presence of women physically in the workplace. So in that situation, they can continue with this kind of technology areas which is needed today. And every day, new technologies are developing, new areas are coming up, in which most of the women can work from home and work at their leisure, and then also enjoy good positions in life. But cyber security, data science, technology, software engineering, all those areas are there in which they can participate, and they have been participating in a big way. But more such persons should come forward to this to enrich this area. I would not like to take much of your time, except saying that women are most welcome in certain areas like networking, engineering, digital marketing, social media, and of course, uh, well, artificial intelligence and machine learning, the new areas in which they are participating, but I think more women would like to come into this area. Particularly, the digital marketing has been, and so digital and social marketing also is playing a very big role in shaping their participation in the real world life. So with these words, I would like all of you to participate more actively into this line so that we are enlightened and we are able to also join you in the endeavor to educate more and more such women and who can manage both household as well as the occupational areas. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your inspiring words, sir. Without further ado, let me just quickly introduce our speakers to everyone. First up, we have Ms. Amrita Chaudhary, CEO and co-founder, Gaia Smart Cities. Ms. Amrita Chaudhary, a distinguished business strategist and innovator, holds degrees from IIT Kanpur, UC Berkeley, and Carnegie Mellon, backed by 7 US semiconductor patents. As CEO of Gaia, a global SaaS venture, she pioneers deep learning solutions with board positions at Siemens, Marshall, Nesco, and Mahindra Lifescape. She drives organizational success. We welcome you, ma'am. Next, we have Mrs. Olga Belova, Counselor to Director, International Governmental Organization, International Center for Scientific and Technical Information. Mrs. Olga currently serves as Counselor to the Director at the International Center for Scientific and Technical Information, a prominent intergovernmental organization spanning 19 member states. With over 60 scientific, educational, and methodological publications, both domestically and internationally, she specializes in higher education, internationalization, and international relations. Ms. Olga has successfully executed approximately 10 governmental grants and played pivotal roles in organizing over 70 international conferences, scientific endeavors, and training projects worldwide. Next, we have Ms. Yael Smaja, CEO Smaja and Smaja. Ms. Yael Smaja, an analyst and strategist, specializes in content, platform creation, and management. In 2003, she established Smaja and Associates USA Inc., a subsidiary of Smaja and Smaja Strategic Advisory with over 2 decades of experience in conferences, consulting, global positioning, and public relations. Ms. Yael served as principal at the Dylan Schneider Group in New York from 1999 to 2003, working with Fortune 500 companies. Next, we have Dr. Veronica Aksinova, co-founder QB.ai. Dr. Veronica serves as Director of Acceleration for Startups in Medical Technologies at the Biomedical Cluster of the Skolkovo Foundation. With over a decade of expertise in fundraising, developing, and marketing biomedical innovations, Dr. Veronica previously managed an oncology portfolio at Skolkovo Foundation and led medical initiatives at Roche, introducing innovative oncology drugs. She co-founded Genome Capital, focusing on early-stage biomedical startups. Veronica mentors startups, coaches technological entrepreneurs, and is passionate about technological entrepreneurship, social innovations, female leadership, unlocking personal potential, and team building. Next, we have Kemoniloi Kim Fatoli, Managing Director, Pula Tech Limited. Ms. Kim is a Johannesburg-based entrepreneur, activist, and leader with a focus on sustainable and inclusive economic development. She founded Pula Tech Limited, an innovative solution company embracing the digital age. As a director at Clearline IS, she bridges the digital divide with fiber infrastructure. She's on the board of National Youth ICT Council, facilitating youth skill development. As the outgoing curator of World Economic Forum, Global Shapers Soweto Hub, she fosters sustainable community development. Next, we have Ms. Rituparna Mandal, Vice President, Synopsys Inc. Ms. Rituparna Mandal is the Vice President of Synopsys Inc. She has led SOC Design Development Center for MediaTek Bangalore, and previously she was the General Manager of MediaTek Bangalore. She has over 25 years of experience in the semiconductor industry. She was recognized by IESA with the Diversity in ESDM Award in 2021 and in 2022. She was also featured on the list of 75 women in STEM published by the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor of Government of India to commemorate India's 75th year of independence. Last but not the least, the moderator for the day, Mr. Faisal Kabusa, founder and chief analyst, TechArc. A senior technology analyst based out of India, Mr. Faisal is the founder and chief analyst at TechArc. His primary domain is telecommunications and ESDM. With over 14 years of experience, he is among leading experts offering consulting services to some of the leading global and tier 1 brands across technology domain. Faisal has worked specifically in mobile ecosystem, IP technologies, converged technologies, digital transformation, semiconductors, and electronics manufacturing. He, apart from offering research and analysis insights to his clients, has also worked on several government projects, including incubation and promotion of domestic electronics manufacturing in India. Now, without any delay, I'll hand over to Mr. Faisal to please take forward this discussion. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Yashika. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. A nice context laid down by Ruby and the Director General earlier. And, I think, women and tech, this has been a topic which is, I believe, being talked a lot. And we feel at times, okay, we are just talking about it and probably there's not much remaining to be discussed in it. And now it's time to act and have actions. But great to see, eminent panelists over here who come from very, when I look at, your profiles, your background, it's, you're completely covering the entire, as we say, the value chain of technology, somebody coming from real hardcore core technology to business development to strategizing. So the entire ecosystem or the value chain of technology is covered by people like you. I don't know where this kind of bias is still kind of there. Eventually, technology is driven by machines, and machines understand skills and expertise. Machines don't look at the gender. So, it's immaterial who is honestly running a machine or a technology which is delivered through that kind of machine. I can share a personal experience. I was once flying from Bangalore to Delhi, and it was all woman kind of crew. So I was like, okay, for a moment, I was, oh, it's only women. But then, it's again the same kind of probably bias that we come with. So we are very fortunate enough that we have ladies across the globe, at least across all the continents. So over the next 45 minutes, we'll get to understand what's happening exactly in this domain and what are the current challenges. These ladies can share about how they have overcome some of the challenges and probably some of the issues they've encountered while achieving where they are today, and which could be a learning and some of the best practices which others can imbibe and implement. So starting with you, Amrita, by the way, I'm really, it's really great to see that someone has a lot of patents in semiconductor, because semiconductor is kind of now picking up in India on the other side. I know Rituparna has been doing semiconductors for a long time, but that's the other side of the semiconductor which was kind of hidden from us so far. So Amrita, give us an understanding. Uh, what do you sense is the current state in India about women in tech?
So thank you, Faisal. First of all, delighted to be here. If we look at the state of women in tech in India, I'd say that it's quite a conundrum, right? Because we look at one level, education, and we have 47% of the undergraduates in STEM fields are women. When we look at the workforce, we are looking at about 27% of the workforce is women. So there's a huge gap, and that's the question, where are these women? Typically in every country, we are seeing this this missing middle, this drop off, which happens at the early stages, and then people don't pick up. In India, at one level, the pipeline is strong, so there are enough women getting trained with their undergraduate degrees. There are enough role models. So if we look at our, the industry bodies are led by women. We have a lot of, women scientists in space, Rituparna here is an example. We have many, in several companies, we have senior leadership who are women, so tech based large companies as well as startups. We do have a presence of women, but at the same time, we have this gap. And when I look at the gap, I'm really looking at it from three levels. One is organizationally, what is happening within organizations, what is happening in society at large, and then finally, what is happening at women, in women themselves, where they want to fit in and contribute. So organizationally, at least in the last decade, increasingly so in the last 2-3 years, we see a lot of focus on diversity and inclusion. If you look at large organizations, there's a lot of mentorship programs, even within India, that are happening. So organizations are trying to do their best. Where I think we do falter is on the societal challenges. So we do have that whole burden that Dr. Madhukar talked about of the other commitments, the care commitments that women have, and learning to navigate that depends on both the woman as well as her ecosystem, her family. And that's where, a lot more of maybe intervention, awareness, all of that is required. There are today programs by the government. So if we look at, NASCOM, if we look at the Principal Scientific Advisor's Office, they're all creating, these policy statements on how to create mentorship, how to create these ladders that help women navigate that ecosystem. So there are things being set in place, but the key, underpinning of all of this is the societal change in the minds of families, which needs to happen. And then finally, it's in the mind of women themselves, of saying that, they do want to continue, they do not want to drop off, they want to be committed, and they want to take charge of their lives, have a vision for who they want to be, how they want to get there, and not let the pressures of life take over, because it can be managed. And it's a negotiation that you can do with your ecosystem, and more women do need to do that. So I think that's where we are.
Yeah, I'll come back to you, and I would want to bring in Rituparna here, since we started with India. Rituparna, how do you see the present scenario different than maybe when you started your career, and you getting into something what we still call very hardcore tech? So how do you see the scenario has changed today? Yes, as Amrita pointed out, I think a lot of women leaders have come up. We are seeing leaders, women leaders in charge of tech companies. There is also a phenomenon, I think, over the past 2-3 years, especially after COVID, that we see a lot of couplepreneurs coming up, and the female co-founder is not just, looking after the admin and HR stuff, but also looking at, the real product stuff. So how do you see this changed?
So yeah, thank you, Faisal. And first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. And a warm good evening, good morning, wherever folks are, to my fellow panelists. Um, so I think I mean, Amrita has actually covered very well, from the different three aspects, and I could relate a lot to what she was saying, from women being in the tech industry and how they are moving up. But if I look at it from when I entered the industry, right? To be very honest, even though right now there is a lot of focus on D&I, on, having metrics in place and having numbers and tracking and all that. If I just look at it, just from as an observer, from an observer standpoint, from the looks at it, actually not much has changed, right? I mean, and that is the sad part, right? I mean, if you still look at it, yes, when I was doing my electronics engineering, it was, I was just we were 10% of the class was girls, right? And even today in electronics, I don't think, the number is so much more. Probably it is slightly more, but I don't know if it is 50-50. Across engineering, probably, at an entry level, it's still, I would say, hovers around the 50% range, right? 40 to 50% are girls and boys, but slowly, it goes to 35% when you enter the job. Then, across, when you move up, it becomes 27%. And at very high levels, we all know the number is probably at an 8% or something like that from, what I last checked, right? So now I don't have the exact statistics from, let's say almost 27 years ago. I don't know the numbers. But if I look at it, for example, even when I was, when I started Imensa Semiconductors, my own company about almost now 13, 14 years ago, right? When we had gatherings for startups, right? Tech startups. And I'm talking about tech startups. I'm not talking about, I think there are a lot of women entrepreneurs in various other fields, but I'm talking about tech startups. I was the only woman sitting in the room, only woman, and semiconductors, so for sure, right? So, and even now, like so I joined Synopsys actually recently, right? And if you look at it from, being at a very high level, or, let's say VP, senior VP kind of position, there's no one else. There's really, even at a very top, leadership is very, very sparse in terms of women. So I think what I'm trying to say is that while a lot of, maybe some numbers have improved, and definitely, if you look at across India, in global capacity centers or in other tech spaces, there are a lot of women heads, and you see many more names, right? You do see, but it's not as much as we should have seen grown in the last 2.5 decades. So I think there's a lot more work or opportunity that's on the table for us to really move the needle, is what I would say.
Okay, sure. Yeah, that's just as an observer within the society, I think that's a very fair assessment of the things. We see probably girl child being encouraged to take the other kind of stuff and not really get into the tech, hardcore tech. And obviously, when you have the problem at the entry level, probably that's why you don't see them much into other domains. But yes, probably some level of education balancing is happening. So maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, we may see things getting better, but probably we need to pace this up. Okay, coming to you, Olga. Now, you heard what the ladies in India, look at it, and how do they see the things happening. Give us an understanding what's happening, out there, and how do you see the women in tech shaping up? Where is it today? How is it maybe, uh, passed over, over some 4 or 5 years down the line? Sorry, there's a problem with the audio. No, we can't hear you.
Maybe you can move to somebody
Yeah,
else.
yeah. So can I request if you could kindly look into your audio and we'll move on to Yale. Yale, why don't you share how do you look at, the women in tech scenario in US as well as the other country you have been in?
Thank you, Faisal. Well, I'm coming at this from two different angles. One's I'm an observer, I'm a generalist, I'm not a woman in tech. I am a woman. And I can totally relate to being the only woman sitting in the room, like Ritupana was saying. That has happened to me a lot in the past 25, 30 years. We create platforms of content, and we are active in India, in Japan, in China, in the US, in Mexico. So we have an understanding a little bit that is global. We also launched the Women Forum, which is the equivalent of Davos for women, years ago for the women who founded this. So what I'd like to do is just give a few broad generalities, I guess, and they will definitely piggyback on what has been said. So according to the World Bank, to a World Bank report, women represent less than 1/3 of the world's workforce in tech-related fields. Keeping in mind that only 47.7% of working age women participate in the global workforce, which is 1 woman for 2 men. So I guess one of the first issue is increasing women participation in the workforce. And of course, that issue is different depending on countries. I mean, if you look at Japan, we've had a platform in Japan for the past 15, 20 years. I hear the exact same conversation since the beginning. So they're aware of the problem, but as Ritupana was saying, for India, not much has changed. So there are initiatives, there are activities, but not much has changed. Another point is that the tech industry obviously is the fastest expanding global industry. And we see a correlation between women participation and the sector thriving. Examples of this are US, Israel, China. But employment in tech still lags behind overall participation in the workforce. If you look at, those are numbers from Deloitte in 2022, it's 25% of women participating in tech sectors versus 32.9% overall participation in the workforce. So broadly speaking, I think, and I invite anybody on the panel to disagree with me, that we can see a growing number of women participating in tech in emerging economies. While there is a little bit of a decrease in the West, if you look at the US, women represent less than 35% of employees in STEM. There has been obvious progress for women in the US. I think it's 8% participating in STEM in 1970 to 28% in 2019. If I take another example, Mexico, which is the second in the region for most digital talents, with the highest trend of increase, we're still only at 8% of women choosing STEM careers. Obviously, there was, I think, a very negative impact of the pandemic on women, and I think that's probably across the board. And as it was pointed out earlier, there is a challenge in diversity, especially in management and leadership roles. As I think Ritu pointed out, it really goes decreasing. And if you look at data from the World Economic Forum, only 24% of women are leaders in the sector at a high level. Quickly going on education, women account only for 16% of students who earned a BA in computer and information sciences, and 21% in engineering globally. women enrollment in STEM courses seems to have dropped globally, only accounting for about 18% of new computer science degrees. And in that particular field, education, I'd like to salute an initiative like the Asian University for Women in Bangladesh, which is really, I think, making headways from what I have seen in that field. So there are some initiatives that are very concrete and that are doing amazing work. And
I'll
again,
stop
in that,
you.
I think.
Sorry, I'll stop you here, Gail. I'll come back to you. But on a whole, what I could sense so far, hearing Amrita, Rituparna, and you, is okay. Maybe things are getting better. We are seeing the participation increasing, but at the same time, I believe that we'll also have to qualify, the depth and the kind of I would say the level of work that women are doing in tech. So while they may be qualifying in women, in the tech domain, but what exactly are they doing in the tech domain is also something which needs to be looked at. How many of them are really doing coding? While we all feel that probably it's maybe a country specific issue, but even in very advanced tech economies like US, very few women leaders we come across, coming really from the core technology. We might come across a few of CMOs in big tech companies, but we don't see really engineering leadership profiles coming in from women. I'll come back to you, and
just give me
okay,
1 second.
sure,
There's
sure,
one
sure.
thing. First of all, I hope we hear about the startup field. I think that's important, and I think Veronica can shed light on that. But the other thing that I wanted to point out is there are some issues, and you're right, we can come back to them, but one that is a little striking to me is that there are very few role models for women in tech, and actually not even only in tech, but in other sectors for this young generation. On this, the floor is yours.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the research done. We also did a research around women in tech, I think 3 years or 4 years back. And back then in India, we had not just women in tech, but women entrepreneurs. There were hardly any role models. Just a few of them when we would kind of interview people. Veronica, coming to you, how do you see this maybe different in South Africa than what you heard from the panelists sharing so far? And do you somewhere agree that yes, we need to look at the quality and the depth of work that women are actually doing in tech? That's also something important, while we are somewhere agreeing to this fact that okay, the participation has increased.
Right. Thank you so much for your question. So first of all, I wanted to highlight my background because I was doing my studies in Europe, in the States, and now I'm living and working in Russia. So I can compare in a way and see maybe the broad picture. And I'm scientist by training, so I was doing academic science in oncology field, and then I shifted to business, to startup worlds. And maybe I'm subjective because I'm surrounded by many brilliant startup girls and founders. And from my perspective, I agree with the colleagues that there are more and more female founders. So in general, I do see this shift with women in STEM. I see that there are more and more women, both in the developed countries and also in the developing countries. And I really support and very happy to see it. In my own country, I also see more and more programs, governmental programs and private initiatives supporting girls to do science and also to get MBA in business and to support technological cooperation. So I think it's really a good trend to see and to support. Regarding role models, indeed, I agree that there are not so many role models. But at the same time, if we look deeper in small niches, in some very particular fields, you can always find your own role model. I think both in science, because we know brilliant scientists like Marie Curie, for example, and also in business. And in this way, I think, again, it's really nice, supportive, and important to see. But I also wanted to highlight the importance of balance, because personally, I do not agree the idea that we need to support some particular, gender-based segregation or something like this. I think that the balance and the success lies on in the way of balance. So women are really great in business and science, but personally, I always worked with brilliant men and I always get support. And I also wanted to highlight the importance of mentorship. So for me, I really very thankful to many mentors that I met on my life journey. And most of them were men, very experienced men, were very generous to share their experience, their network, their contacts, their capital, everything. So I'm super thankful for this. And I think that we need to collaborate more and to engage more, not just to say girls in STEM and that's it, but we cannot exist and be successful, right, just by making these borders. So that's why I wanted to highlight this importance and to be more open and to be more collaborative, in both terms, in terms of gender, in terms of geography and everything. And I think that success and our personal and career development is very important and can only be gained in this collaborative way.
Sure. Olga, can you try if your mic is not working? You have to unmute yourself first.
Maybe you can hear me now.
Yes, we can.
That's great. I am glad. I'm so glad to get your role now here.
Okay, so the same question, and I want to hear your perspective around it. How do you see women in tech? When we talk about women in tech, we're talking about entrepreneurship, women leadership in tech companies, as well as the education around tech of women. How do you see that has changed, not just maybe in Russia, but even in the entire region you have a view of?
But maybe a few words about Russian Federation, because it's very important to see how it works on different levels, from the position of the state, of government, from position of technology sector as it is, and from perspectives of our development as the universe maybe. So first of all, I want to say that last year, the Russian government approved the National Action Strategy for Women until 2030. And it's a very important document. The very first time in Russian history we have such kind of document. And this document emphasizes that women should use new opportunities for development. They should use new support measures from state, from non-profit sector, and they should have equal opportunities with men for personal and professional growth and fulfillment of their wish, desire, and realizing their careers. And for sure, it's very important to have equal access to healthcare, education, openness of labor markets. It's really a problem sometimes. And maybe one more problem, we have already speak about it, somehow to combat public stereotypes against women. Sometimes it really works even in Russia. So at the same time, the Russian government believes that the most important role of women in society is to give birth to children. It's not new position. And therefore, the state directs the main support measures to this sphere. Women in Russia are strongly prohibited to work with harmful chemicals, to work in mines, for example, and so on. But it's a great deal that in this list of prohibited professions, there's no sign of IT industry. So in IT industry, women could work and could achieve their best. Besides, during the last 20 years, the list of jobs prohibited for women has been reduced for 4. At the very beginning of the century, there were about 500 positions, and now it's only 100 positions where women could not work at all. For sure, this is the result of digitalization, of new technologies, who really makes our work more comfortable, and so on. And the Russian government, and it's important, really pays attention to women education and IT sphere. So there are no restrictions in education at all. Besides, we have Minister of Digital Development, Russian Minister of Digital Development, tries to develop and constantly improve special projects for young ladies, for women at universities, girls at the universities, and try to train them on different level of age as a qualified personnel in IT industry. It's really important. And besides, we are trying to bring new competences for women and make them believe in themselves, because it's very important that women could believe in themselves, that they could achieve good results.
Sorry to interrupt you here, Olga. I'll come back to you, and take these suggestions from you. How can we improve the situation? But thanks for giving you an overview of the entire federation, how the things are there. Let's reach out to Kim. Kim, for whatever reasons, we not get into those reasons, there has been a lag between, the African continent and the other countries so far in the overall progress of human society. But I believe when it comes to women, there is not a very, big difference. Perhaps it's moving somewhere in parallel. How do you see the situation out there?
Well,
hi everyone.
I'm sorry.
No problem. It's afternoon where I am, so afternoon everyone. I am in South Africa, in Johannesburg, and thanks for that question, Faisal. It's great to be here. I'm learning quite a lot. To speak on that, so I'm not necessarily going to speak of the entire continent. The continent is divided into different, different regions, and the regions themselves have their own ways of working. They have their own cultural differences. And in the Southern Hemisphere, I can speak for SADC, perhaps, right? In South Africa, we still have a huge gender gap. Only 13% of graduates in STEM are women currently, and we only have 23% of jobs, tech jobs, being occupied by women in the country. So there is still a disparity, and looking at where we are, South Africa is a very young demographic. The African continent itself is quite young. The median age in South Africa is 27.6 years old currently, which means that young people themselves are not taking up, young women themselves are not taking up STEM as much as they should be, which is quite a matter of concern, and that inspires some of the work that we do. From an observation perspective, and being South African myself, as a young people, the things that I know are challenges and barriers are the mindsets, first of all, of young people. As women, we are trained differently, and as a Black woman particularly, we are trained to be traditional. You must take care of families, and your values and what's important to you should be, I'll be very blunt about it, finding a husband first. And at the age of 30, if you have not found a husband, you have done something wrong in life. You can have 6 degrees, you can win world awards, but have you found a husband yet? So that societal mental shift is very important, right? To start encouraging women, because young girls see this in society and aspire for one over the other. That's one. Number two, we need mentors in tech from a global perspective. South Africa, as it stands, a lot of our people don't have passports because, they believe that we live in this utopia. And this is the young people I'm speaking on behalf of. So if we have more global collaborations, more global reach, for instance, webinars like this, they should be, directed at young people. Go to where young people are and expose them to some of these conversations. So some of the work that we do are career exposed within secondary school as well as high schools. And this is where we try and, become the role models ourselves for young women, encouraging them to go into STEM because they feel, as I felt in high school, is this really something I can do? This seems like a subject for boys, whereas I got distinctions for all my STEM subjects and I could have easily, chosen that field. Our government is trying hard to, bring in solutions. However, we do still need a lot of external collaboration. So we have government agencies, we've got government departments, we've got policy that has been set aside to encourage women participation in STEM and technology. We've got certain grants, we've got funding that is also set aside and allocated for women, but still women do not grab the opportunities. Women are not able to access those opportunities. So those are some of the gaps that we have been researching as well as, collaborating on. And as the National Youth ICT Council, we focus on the youth, and the work that we do with women includes skills development and training. The great thing about technology is that you don't have to necessarily have a background to start learning about it, right? And then we partner with universities as well so that we can understand the innovations that are taking place. We can also encourage innovations through hackathons and international competitions, and we can encourage the STEM fields that have females participating and start trying to globalize those.
So Kim,
Right.
I'll have to interrupt you here because you are answering my second question, okay, which is for the entire panel, because I think one of the takeaways we want to have today is definitely not just diagnose the problem or identify the challenges. I think that's done many a times, but understand from all of you how this can be really solved, okay, through collaborations, and hear your ideas and your experiences how this all can be solved. I'll now again come to Amrita, and this would be kind of a second question for all the panelists out here, to share your ideas that, okay, now there's a problem, we understand probably there's issue with education, there's issue with acceptability of leadership, there are these issues as outlined. What exactly can be done? Because I feel somewhere we have to be fair on the other gender also, because there have been women presidents, prime ministers, so there is somewhere acceptability of women as leaders. If I talk outside tech, we had Indra Nui leading PepsiCo. So I think since by legacy men have been controlling or at the leadership positions, but once they see that there is someone, I think there's no hesitation in passing on the baton. So is it kind of, we have to wait for that natural progression that things will move on their own as the, I would say, the supply gets better. So Amrita, what are your views, and how can we really address this, the challenges discussed so far?
So I think the problem is obviously complex, and there are many angles of addressing it. But I think it has to begin one mind at a time. And when I say one mind at a time, I think we need to look at our own minds and maybe the minds of people around us. So if I look at my own personal journey, I did start out with semiconductors in California, right? And that's where I got the patents. I am an entrepreneur now in the tech space. I sit on multiple listed company boards, again bringing in that tech lens at the board level. So it's because I want to be there, right? And that really is the driving factor. You want to do it, you want to be there, you want to have that voice, you want to contribute, you want to participate, right? So that desire, that passion, is the starting point of everything. And if we can convert people one mind at a time, then that equity that women put into their own lives and into their own journey will also give them that ability to navigate the ecosystem, to negotiate with the ecosystem, to actually make sure that they collaborate. Today, it's a wonderful forum. We're seeing all the activities that are happening through our panelists. They're mentioning the activities that are happening across countries in the US, in Russia, in South Africa, and there are bridges that can be built within countries, across countries. And again, it still is a one mind share at a time, and then building on that. And that's how it will happen.
Great. Ritupada, same question. What are your thoughts? How can we really solve this problem? Maybe 2-3 recommendations on your side.
No, I don't think there's any silver bullet to this answer, right? I mean, it's not we just do action item 1, 2, 3, and this problem is solved, like everyone is, talking about. But fundamentally, at a very philosophical level, honestly speaking, right, it has to change with the society. It has to change with the way children are brought up, right? And I say specifically, I talk children because it's not only the way girls are brought up, right? It is really about the way we bring up our boys. So I'm a mother to 2 boys, and I really believe society can only change when everyone changes together. So and I'm very proud to say my eldest son is in college, and he's a feminist, right? And I think if I've done one thing right, it's the way I've brought him up, right? So I think society overall, because everyone across the board, I think, has talked about, it's not it's not that women are not ready. It's also what containers they have been put in for so long in the society, and those containers need to shatter somewhere, right? So that's on the society part. But also just like Amrita mentioned, that we are here because we want to be here. And that is where I probably have a little bit of grouse with a lot of women, and I'll be very blunt here, right? Because at least, and I have seen this so much happening in India, that there are so many women I know who have studied engineering, right? Or who have studied and have made a choice to sit at home. And I'm like, why? I mean, why are, just because you have, whoever XYZ, your spouse, or, someone is earning and you have that, but why will you not work? Right. So I just feel that, it shouldn't be a choice. Being in the workforce, and I'm probably, being a little radical here, but if we want to change this, that part also has to change, where that hunger cannot be limited only to a few of us, right? If you really want to see a big change, that hunger has to actually, be across the board, right? Once you have that, I feel opportunities will automatically come, right? I mean, it is, because once you prove yourself, at the end of the day, I think one of the things that have changed, at least in corporates or in major places, is that people are looking at what value you bring to the table, and really not at your gender. I mean, of course, gender comes in, and all those things are there, but it's really what value do you bring, right? Are you able to make an impact? And once you're able to prove that, and you have that hunger, and you're able to prove it, opportunities will come out, and then all these role models, it becomes a chain reaction, right? So I think, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm being a little radical, but those are my thoughts.
See, at the same time, thank you. At least we got one of the things which can't be solved by algorithms. So that's something good. Yael, you are a keen observer, and I could get that from your previous conversation. But if briefly you could give us a couple of points which you feel can solve this challenge.
Thank you. I just have 2 points. And actually, the first one is I want to thank Ruby for inviting me to this panel, because I was a little afraid I was going to be very alone. And I actually have heard so many opinions that are in line with what I think, that I feel much better. First point that I would like to highlight is a change of mindset, which has been already touched upon. And I think it goes both ways. It goes a change of mindset for young women in countries like Africa, and for the men around them, to let them reach their potential and to see other ways to success. And in the West, and I'm caricaturing for the sake of time, it's stop hiding behind the fact that you're a woman. I'm sorry, the excuse doesn't hold anymore. That's the first thing. And the other thing in the same field is for women to stop fueling their own stereotype, because I feel that women are very often fueling the stereotype, and that makes me personally very angry. My other point is totally in line with Dr. Veronica. It's the no silos, because we are talking just now about women and girls, but really the issue, we need to address particular issues, and those are usually regional or country, or related to a country, or related to a sector. But let's stop thinking in silos, because I don't think that helps anything. Those were my 2 points.
Okay, thank you. There are some questions from audience also. We'll try to take them towards the end. Veronica, you're the only one who officially has AI tag with you. So do we have a solution to these challenges? What are your views?
That's true, but I didn't get the question. I mean, what is the question? Since I'm part of AI community, at least here in
No, no,
Russia.
no. That was just on a lighter part. The challenges we discussed. So what are your recommendations? How can this be solved?
It's not an easy question. Personally, I do not have any recommendations right now. I do agree with what Ms. Mandal say about value. So I do see how the value affects how the person is successful or not. And I think it's not gender related. It's true that it's harder, it's more difficult for girls. I think so, to express, to show to the world their capacities and their potential. But in fact, once you have done it, it doesn't matter, even here in the developing countries. I mean, I'm talking about my personal experience. It doesn't matter your gender, it matters your knowledge, your experience, and the way how you communicate with people and how you're able to build your teams. Talking about my tech experience, so I'm part of the venture fund, but I'm also the co-founder of AI startup. And I think the most difficult and the most important part is to gather people together and to let them work, right? To organize them in teams. And again, here gender is even maybe has a bigger preference. So it's good to be girl in AI field because we're mainly men, guys. And as a girl, you have a preference, and it's easier to build teams and be a team lead here.
Sure.
So, but for other girls who are just starting this way, I think the recommendation would be to look for a mentor, maybe to a female mentor who can share her knowledge, her experience, right? And also to search for governmental programs, because I'm sure there are many programs that you can use. And I also did it when I was applying for my European studies. I always managed to find some grants and use them to go abroad and to study. I think it's a good way. So mentors and programs, grants.
Okay. Olga, your views. How can these challenges be addressed?
Thank you. I have 4 recommendations for BRICS countries. First, the BRICS countries shall agree that we cannot and must not act by force. Our task of governments, non-profit sector, educational institutions, is to create conditions. So we could make a small statement or where we could explain what does it mean to create conditions. In a few words, we should create conditions in our BRICS countries where women choose IT as a natural opportunity for their self-realization without associating IT with male or female activities. It's just like going to a shop and buy bread. A man who buys bread does not think that he is doing woman's work and vice versa. So first idea, to create conditions and to make a short statement specially addressed to our BRICS countries. Second idea, we should promote the development of international platform or kind of international platform or free forum maybe for exchanging experience in IT education and work experience in IT companies. Participants of such forum should be equally women and men without any restrictions based on gender. I suggest that maybe we use our BRICS opportunities to organize a kind of this free forum to exchange experience in education and work. Third idea, in order to support women in their difficult choice of IT sphere, it is desirable to have a state-supported Institute of Women's Mentoring. Veronica just spoke about it. And about women's mentoring and psychological support for women. Sometimes it's very important for them to overcome traditional views. And fourth idea, the non-commercial sector of BRICS countries could assist in organizing a kind of structure. For example, in Russian, we have the Union of Women's Forces, which helps women who are trying their hand in business. And many of these women share their experience in networks, they're simply ordinary networks, create business partnerships, and act as business coaches for each other. And this experience could be used in the IT sphere, why not? So these are my 4 recommendations. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I think we got a set of recommendations from all of you, and I'm sure the BRICS CCI WE will be kind of putting them together, and there could be a recommendations which could be floated across BRICS nations about how these can be addressed and tackled collectively. I'll just quickly
I
take.
would just like to add one thing here that,
Yeah.
as you're aware, Faisal, we had recently unveiled a report on the status of women in tech and business across the BRICS countries. And maybe we can share a copy of this report to you with all of you, and you can share your ideas, because this was just more like a status report, what is currently happening. It didn't have what are the ideas that we can take forward, what are the initiatives that we can take forward. And maybe we could bring out a white paper after this based on all your suggestions and share with the various nations.
Absolutely. So we have 2 questions from audience. One, I would take the liberty to answer, which is like, with AI coming in and she robots becoming a reality, how will it have an impact on work life? I think we are again looking it from gender perspective. We should not perhaps look it from like gender perspective. It will not have any probably relevance out here. Yes, there's a question that there's a dynamics of being left out that women often face in the corporate world. Is it improving? I don't know. Would Rituparna, you would like to take this question?
Yeah, I saw that question, and so I'm not sure I'm interpreting it correctly, but I will give my answer based on what I've understood from it. So I think definitely, at least what I have seen, and probably I see a lot of entrepreneurs in the panelists as well, and they will probably identify with this a little more, right? This whole thing of being left out is a lot to do with networking, right? So I mean, you have like men, going out for a drink, or going out for beers, and I mean, all said and done, we have talked about the roles of the women, and whether we have constrained ourselves, society has constrained, whatever be the case, right? There are certain definitions or things that we believe that we need to do. So at least for me, when I'm done, of course, it's not that I don't go for dinners and lunches, etc. I don't meet people, but there are times when I would come home, to my children, or, I would make that choice of not going out for that networking dinner and, coming home and doing stuff that I need to do. So yes, if this whole thing of feeling left out has to change, I hate to say it, but it has to change by the women themselves. Because it's not that any other networking event or anybody is going to stop and say, okay, let me work around, your schedule, and let me reschedule this, right? So, if you have to change that, it has to be you making that priority and making that choice whenever you need to. So I don't know if it has changed, but it's more acceptable to do it now, is what I will say.
This exactly goes with views of a CTO, female CTO. I'll not name her. It was for one of the researches where she exactly pointed out that we don't participate in networking much. And that was by choice and some other compulsions, maybe a family, priorities to attend and all that. We have one last question. I'll take it and then we can wrap it up. As mindset change will need more effort on the lines of behavior change, that's not overnight. Would like to know role of policy and good impactful research fueling that policy advocacy. Amrita, would you like to answer this?
So it's a like a triumvirate of business, government, and society that needs to come together, like in every country. And policymakers today are very aware of this across the board. Like in India, at least, we see a lot of focus. If we look at the G20 through the W20, there were a lot of initiatives. If we look at our, not particularly tech, but if you look at our Republic Day parade this year, like, and how we celebrated women across, like, every industry. So there is a lot of, that seeding of ideas that is being done by policymakers and by government today. Now it is up to us, like, again, it comes back to us and our families to absorb all of this and see, like, like all of that messaging actually, like, it takes root in our minds, in the minds of our families, so that then collectively, like, that mind shift happens. But I think the time couldn't be better for saying that, the enablers are being put in place.
Sure. Thanks for
Faisal,
answering this.
just one more thing, since I am the BRICS CCI, as and Ankita, the representatives here from the chamber, we would like this opportunity to talk about from what, taking it further from what Amrita, Rituparna, everybody raised, It's about, you can have a lot of policies. Yeah, and we know across countries, there are a lot of policies and incentives for women, especially women entrepreneurs. But I don't know how many of us actually, take forward those incentives. And because in India, for example, only around 14% of women actually avail any of the government incentives that are there. So, and what Rituparna was talking about, lesser networking, lesser role models, lesser mentoring, lesser going out. So based on this, we started this global women leadership, entrepreneur leadership mentoring program at BRICS CCI. We just had the convocation recently of the first batch, and this is about taking your business globally. So move out of your comfort zone and try to take your business across other geographies. And we would like more and more women from other countries to participate. And in the inaugural batch also, we had a few women from different countries there. And maybe you can spread the word around that it's not just about doing something, it's about thinking big. And sometimes we are too comfortable in whatever we are doing, and we don't want to change our work-life balance, etc. Because, but it's about thinking big and trying to expand your horizons, and that's what we at in the chamber are trying to do.
Okay, thanks a lot. So women have a different way of approaching things. So maybe we need mother mentors over here also to kind of handhold and guide the youngsters and girls out there how they can take it forward. It was really wonderful, ladies, that you were very precise and gave very I would say thoughtful as well as well pointed and researched perspectives about the current scenario and how really we can probably advance further in solving some of these challenges. I know all of it cannot be solved overnight. We'll have to end this session. Thanks a lot for taking out time, and you are in different time zones, so different priorities right now. But thanks for taking out time and attending this session. I am sure this would have been a good session for audiences to hear. Thanks, audience, and also participating through questions. With this, we come to an end. Over to you, Yashika.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you, everyone, to all the speakers for such an insightful session. So I will not take much of your time. I would hand over to Ms. Ankita Sachdev, Joint Director, BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to deliver vote of thanks. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Yashika. So I had a very insightful thought process after this session. So thank you, Ruby. She has been the driving force behind this vertical. Her passion for women vertical is next level. So she just plans it and then she executes like this. And then thank you to all the panelists. We have Amrita, Veronica, Rituparna, Yale, Olga. And thanks to Faisal for skillfully moderating the session, making sure everybody is heard here. And thanks to Dr. Madhukar for taking out time. My team, Commune's team, Yashika, Naman, everybody for carefully taking care of the back office operations. And Rituparna, I'm very much impressed with your thoughts. Prioritize yourself before anything else. That's the motto in life that every woman leader should have now. So everything's gonna happen, but ladies, please prioritize yourself before anything else. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.